Welcome back to the weekly Cyber Review. I'm your host Cybercopy, and I'm here with Honto Shinobi again.
What's up?
And we are going to be reviewing the game Path of Exile. It's a top-down style RPG action game, would you say?
The way I heard it described is a loot-based RPG game.
Yeah, loot-based RPG game.
Hmm.
That's yeah. I wouldn't consider it MMO because I think you can only have a party up to four,
Six.
6. Oh yeah, I'm doofus. So let's go ahead and get started here with the audio, I guess.
All right.
What did you think about the voiceovers? I thought they were kind of they're really good. Everything was like pretty much voiced over.
Yeah, I don't really get a whole lot into the plot of these games a lot of the times, but they definitely had a voice for every person that you interact with, and I think it fit the story they were telling and everything. So they did a good job with it.
Yeah, like one thing I really enjoyed was when you go to a quest person and you talk to them for the first time. Normally they will actually talk the whole quest out, and you'll see the dialogue too. But then all the quests after that, they won't say anything. You'll just get the dialogue. But on this, everything is they actually speak it. It's really cool.
Yeah, if you don't skip over it, they speak everything, even the little tips that they give you, if you want to go and just kind of get some more information from them about different things, about different characters, everything is voiced.
Yeah, it's not too much to say. I really thought they did an amazing job on that, though. Pretty high
Yeah, did it
rated.
they did well.
But as for communication, it's different. You have to use a lot of like I think you use the at sign when you're actually whispering somebody, and then there's like the percentage sign for like party, and there's another one for group and everything. And I just all those symbols, it's kind of hard to learn. But the cool thing is like they have a drop down menu where if you click on it, it'll tell you how to communicate. Did you ever really use the communication that much?
Yeah, I tried it out quite a bit. I think that, it worked. It was kind of confusing at first to get used to, but then of course they did encompass being able to drop items in there to show people what you got and for the aspect of trading and things like that. So I think it definitely was satisfactory. I think it has room to improve in terms of, maybe making it flow a little smoother, but it definitely works.
Yeah, yeah, no. So I turned off like general chat or the trade chat because it just gets spammed. It's it's a crazy market.
Mhm.
And the music, how'd you feel the music was in the game?
I didn't really notice a whole lot of music in the game. I mean, it definitely had a lot of sounds, but I didn't really notice music a whole lot.
Really? They have like a music for every zone in there, I think.
I don't know. I guess I normally shut music off in most of my games. I mean, I definitely didn't really like mark it down in terms of music or anything like that.
Yeah.
I think it fit the genre what I did here, but like I said, I'm usually pretty quick to shut off music.
Yeah, it was just a lot of instrumental type sounds, music, not orchestra, but kind of like Diablo 2 style music. I don't know if you've ever played Diablo 2.
Definitely.
Yeah, had a lot of that in the background. As far as repeating itself, I think every zone had at least 3 to 4 separate songs, which isn't too bad. And how about game sounds? What did you think of those?
I think the game sounds worked for the different abilities. Nothing really seemed weird and out of place or anything like that. I didn't really hear anything kind of, being recycled or anything that was like obnoxiously loud or anything like that. So I think it worked well for the game.
Yeah, every spell had its own separate sound, which is really cool. Even like I think when items drop, you get sounds off that too.
Right.
Identifying objects, you hear the little scroll sound. I thought their sounds were pretty well done. Overall, the audio and the communication in that, it's I would say up to standard. Consider I think it's an open beta now, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, for a beta, it's pretty far along. There's not too much more they can improve on, except for maybe the communication in game. It's a little cluttered and it's a little hard to understand if coming from a lot of different games. It's kind of got its own unique way of doing things.
Yeah, I think if they just added a little more customization in terms of like, the layout of it and, maybe more options to filter out certain things you don't want to see or something like that, that could improve it.
Oh yeah, that's another thing I kind of wanted to talk about. I totally forgot. There's actually no mature language filter that I could find. I looked everywhere. I could not find one. So that's another thing to consider.
Right. Most games have that standard.
Yeah, it might be hidden somewhere or I wasn't looking in the right spot, but I spent a good 10 minutes looking through all the options. I didn't see mature language filter anywhere. So I don't know if nobody was swearing when I joined, so I don't know if it's automatically on or if it's automatically off. But it is, I think, a more mature game. So, you know,
Yeah, surprisingly, I didn't notice anybody cursing, but I also didn't notice anybody getting censored. So I'm pretty sure that it doesn't have it default turned on.
yeah. All right, let's move on to the actual video and the graphics. And the quality, I thought it's cool for the type of genre it is. There wasn't too much bugginess with the game, except for I don't know if it was server lag or if it was just animation lags. But there's sometimes when you're fighting a monster and you're ranged and you're sitting there attacking it with like an arrow or a spell, and the monster's not actually there. It's in the room separate. It just like walked through the wall, and you're shooting at nothing. You like the animations. If you shoot an arrow, there'll actually be an arrow in its head. It's not taking any damage, and you walk in the next room, and then he like ports over there, and then you can kill him. Did you notice that?
I did get a little bit of lag. I don't know if that's necessarily gonna, factor into the quality of it. I think in terms of visually, I think they did a really good job with it. I mean, everything is pretty unique and different for the different items that you get, and they have, all those things don't really look like they repeat a lot of the same graphics and everything. But yeah, I definitely did experience lag and as well as game crashes.
Yeah, I don't know if that was with the server or if it's actually with the graphics, which is why I'm not, I can't say, oh, the graphics suck because it's lagging. I don't know. Could be their servers.
I don't know. There seemed to be lag on whether I was playing on the American server or not.
Yeah, that is true. They have what, 4 different servers now that you can join?
I'm not sure. All I remember seeing is two.
Okay. And as for something else with the quality or the graphics, I think the screen can get really cluttered at times. I don't know. The further on you get, when you get like 20 mobs on a screen, then there's like 3 different people casting a bunch of spells, and there's loot dropping everywhere. It can get really cluttered, which I don't mind. I honestly kind of like games like that, just because you gotta keep a little bit more attention, because you're not sure if there's like an arrow heading towards your way and you're almost dead, unless you're paying attention really close.
Yeah, it gives you a lot to pay attention to. Those are usually the times where I lose track of my health and die because I'm trying to pay attention to so much.
Yep. All right, let's move on to like cinematics and videos. As far as I can tell, there isn't any. Could you find any?
The closest thing I saw to cinematics is like when you get to a boss or something, it'll kind of, zoom in on the boss as it does the audio and kind of pause in your movement ability, and it'll do that also when introducing characters that are part of the storyline. But I wouldn't even really call that cinematics. It's still using the default graphics of the game. It's just freezing your movement while doing the dialogue.
Yeah, it's just a script running in the background, pretty much.
Right. So yeah, definitely didn't see any cinematics at all. And I actually specifically tried to search for it and see if there was maybe ones that I was overlooking, but it doesn't really seem that cinematics were really part of the game.
Yeah, I thought it could really use some. Like, there's the intro to this. There isn't really anything. You just arrive on a beach. There's no cinematic what was happening before, how you got there. It isn't beta, but you still expect some type of rough draft out by now. I got into the beta, I think, back in late 2011. So a year and a half ago almost now.
Yeah, I think it had a decent plot and everything, and it definitely would enhance the plot if they added cinematics to it. I mean, if they showed maybe the boat crashing or something like that at the beginning, and maybe put a little bit of cinematics in between boss fights and things like that. I don't think that would. I mean, I think that would. I don't think it really takes away from the game too much, but it definitely would put you more into the storyline.
Yeah. And as far as visual upgrades, I guess I'll let you go ahead and start, and then I can add on to this, or do you want me to start?
Visual upgrades I actually looked quite a bit at because I know that in terms of your characters, they all look identical, unless you're to delve into the microtransaction type stuff that they allow you to do with cash through the website. And since I hadn't looked into that myself because I'm pretty cheap and I don't usually spend money on games unless it's something that's worth it, I went ahead and took a look just kind of at it, what it gives you, and it gives you the ability to change the way your character looks, add in like taunt type animations, change the way your weapons look, add hats to your characters, pets, changing the way your skills cast. So, I mean, it has a lot of customization in terms of the look of your characters and items, but it's all based around spending real money through those microtransactions.
Yeah, that's kind of, you hit everything I was gonna actually say. But that is another way that they support themselves. Being, I believe it's gonna be a free to play game once it actually launches.
Right.
But like, the thing I was most interested in is actually the spell skins. You can have a fireball that's like a dragon instead of like just the normal ball of fire shooting out. It's a dragon. It looks really cool. Honestly, I think it's it's expensive. I think it's almost $20, but it's something like that. It does take a lot of development time to make, and it's a good way to give back to the game for something you're already enjoying, and you get a little bit extra. So
Yeah, and they give you a lot of options as well. I mean, they've even gone as far as allowing you to pay to have, your own unique item added to the game.
yeah, I think that's like $1,000. You can have a unique item
Right.
you get to design. That is really that's I've never seen a game do that recently. I'm sure there's been some that have done it in the past, or maybe overseas games.
Right.
But yeah, that's as far as visual upgrades. There's no way you could look alike with somebody else if you actually spent real money on it and supported the game. But it would be cool if they had something that you could do in game. Maybe doing, I don't know, grouping with other people or helping them out to earn like cool, like, I don't know, cool people points, and then go spend those in like a free type place and get your own other type of visual upgrades.
Yeah, I mean, you have your armor and everything, but you're still gonna look pretty cookie cutter in the world. So I think that's kind of the route they took to getting people to pay for the game if they want to look different. But it doesn't really take away from the gameplay or anything. It definitely doesn't give an advantage to anyone to make the payments. I mean, the most that you can get is extra slots in your stash and extra slots for your characters, and that
Yeah.
doesn't really give you an advantage either.
Nope, just saving scrolls and going back to town.
Right.
All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to the actual gameplay. That's where
Mhm.
most of this is done, considering it's a action RPG loot fest.
Right.
All right, so the movement and the reaction time, I thought they're actually pretty decent. How you move is with your mouse. You don't actually use your keyboard to move. You actually use, I think, Q through T, and then your left mouse, your right mouse, and your middle mouse. Those are your spells. You just click to move. If you're trying to move and there's a character, but your spell is on your move key, then you'll cast that spell on the character. But if you change that move key to just a normal walk, then you'll just walk to it. So that's pretty cool that you can do that. So you don't have to always be like, oh, I'm gonna attack that guy. That sucks. Or if you're a ranger, you can hold down Shift and use your left mouse button to do just a normal basic attack, and you don't have to actually aim on the target. You can just aim wherever you want. So there's a lot of customization there.
Yeah, I've never really been a fan of the whole clicking to move aspect of it. I've always really preferred using WASD for movement, but I think with the kind of skill-based system that you have there and the kind of keys that you're utilizing and everything, I think it works really well, and it definitely gives you other options. I mean, you don't have to continuously click. You can hold the click down to continue to move in that direction and things like that. So I don't think it really takes away from the game. It's not really my favorite control style, though.
Yeah, also, one thing I did notice, this is like one of my cons about it, is sometimes when you'd move, if you clicked in the just the right spot, you could sit there and walk into an invisible item or invisible wall. And it's like, it's not fixed yet. It's been in beta for like, what, a year now? Some of those invisible walls still exist.
I've never encountered that, surprisingly enough.
Yeah, I think it's mostly on some of the later acts. I think
Probably.
there's 4 acts right now, but I think they're gonna release up to 7. Do you remember?
I never heard of there being a cap to it, but I definitely did hear that there's a lot more content that they're releasing. They patch pretty regularly.
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and get to difficulty and team balance type of deal. How did you feel about the difficulty?
Well, I mean, I think that the game is, when you're playing a solo role, just general kind of going along without a party, it's actually fairly easy to get through the maps, but then the bosses are pretty difficult. And then when you're playing as a party, I think it's a pretty good difficulty as well. I mean, you'll definitely need the different roles in terms of who can, take the damage, who deals the damage, stuff like that. So I think they did a pretty good job with it. I don't really have any gripes when it comes to that, except for that, I think it could stand to be a little bit more difficult for solo, for just the general mobs.
Well, yeah, that is kind of uneasy though. I think once you get to the harder difficulties, there's like what the first one's like normal, and then it goes like cruel, and then brutal, and something like some other stuff. It gets really difficult, but I think the disadvantage to doing solo is you don't have that extra support for when you die. You go back to town. You don't go to the. Or wait, do you go to the beginning of the instance now, or the zone? I can't remember.
You go back to whatever town you're in that act.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. You go back to town. I haven't died in a while. Pretty hardcore. Pretty hardcore. But that's one disadvantage. If you don't have a portal up or the waypoint, that's a lot of walking back you have to do. Whereas if you had a teammate, he could put up a portal, and I believe they can also res. Right?
That I think I did see that somewhere, but I haven't experienced that. But again, there's a lot of stuff I overlook, simple things. But when I was talking about soloing, though, it's mainly that I just, I don't think the game is as fun when soloing. It doesn't really offer, as much entertainment for me personally. And I don't know if that has, to do with the difficulty or not. It's probably just because in general games are more fun co-op.
Well, yeah, some people like to play solo, some people like to play co-op. I think this game's trying to get people more to play co-op. They actually have a billboard system. I think you said you didn't use that, right?
I noticed it, but no, I didn't use it. I was mainly playing with real life friends.
Okay, and with the billboard is you go up to it, you click on it, and then it'll show you a list of all the groups that are open to public, and then you see the levels in there, and usually they have a description of what quests they're on. So you're like, okay, I'm on this quest to kill this guy. This guy's doing the same quest. Join his party, and then bam, you're in his party. All you need to do is go to the same zone as him, and then you're in the same zone. If you're already in that zone when you join a party, though, you will have to leave that zone and then rezone to actually see him.
Yeah, I think they did a pretty good job with it. I mean, just from the way that you described it to me and my understanding of it, they made the party system pretty smooth. You don't have to actually find the person and right click on them and party with them, but you can do that. And you can also party through the chat system as well. So if somebody says, in the communication that they're looking for a party, you can actually click right on their name and add them to friends and invite them to a party.
Yeah, I thought that was awesome. And then
Mhm.
as for endgame, I haven't experienced this yet. I think my highest level is like 44, somewhere around there. But I think there's like an instance type thing at the end where you find certain items, then you open up a portal and you go into an instance with really hard mobs that drop nice loot. You go in there and just kill them. You grind that way. You don't have to redo the boss fights or redo the other zones. You get a whole new instance just for yourself.
I saw a little bit of that on some videos. I hadn't gotten that far in the game, but it looked pretty tough.
Yeah, that's where what you do when you're actually finished with the game. There's a lot of content to go through. I played 2 weeks straight on this game at one point, and I only got to like 35 doing that.
Yeah, for being beta, they have a pretty decent amount of content, and like I said, they're adding stuff in all the time. So I think there's definitely a bright future in the game.
Yeah, it kind of follows the basics of most games. It's really easy for those first 10, 20 levels, and then after that, every level could take an hour to get or 2 hours, and is the harder The longer you play, the harder it gets. I guess I should
Yeah,
say.
seems to be a little easier in parties though in terms of leveling.
Yeah, because you can just destroy stuff easily. Just walk through it. You can have everybody could have a different aura, so you all get extra bonuses.
Right.
All right, so pay to win. I think we kind of covered that. It's not really pay to win. The shop, it has, like you said, it has pets. You can get glow on your weapons. You can get masks that glow golden. I think you can even get wings actually that glow also. You can get dance animations. You can get the skill upgrades or the like visual upgrades, not actual skill upgrades, and then more inventory slots.
Yeah, it's pretty much all cosmetic except for the extra character slots and stash slots. And always respect games that are like that. There's a lot of games out there where they reserve, the most entertaining content for people that pay cash for it. And, I never really respect game makers too much that have it set up that way. So I think that, it's just like a like I said, a cosmetic appeal to it, but it doesn't really give you any advantage.
Well, yeah. Another thing is that the some of the devs that are working on Path of Exile actually worked on Diablo 2, which took up the majority of my youth.
Yeah, and what's kind of cool is I actually saw a video where one of the developers was playing with a popular gamer, and he was just kind of talking about the game and everything. And in his words, he said that when they made Path of Exile, they made the game that they wanted to play because they were fans of that style, that genre, as being part of Diablo 2. And when they made Path of Exile, they were like they were making a game that they would enjoy.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to accessibility. So as far as that goes, I think there's more than two servers now. I know there's in North America and I think there's Europe. I think there's two other servers I can't remember. I haven't actually checked in a while. And you can usually always get on unless they're doing a patch or maintenance, which they'll let you know if you're already on the game, and like servers shutting down in 2 hours or whatever. My computer is pretty high end. I run it smoothly on any type of settings. Have you had any trouble with the game at all?
Well, I've had issues with crashing. I've had issues with not being able to log in. I've had variable issues. They're usually temporary. It's not something that's real often, but I definitely have been booted. I definitely have had lag issues, but it's not all the time. It makes me feel like that they're in beta and they're still working stuff out, but I don't think it really hindered my experience.
Yeah, I think because it is in beta, I give them a lot more slack on that type of stuff because they're
Right.
constantly doing hot fixes or fixing bugs or exploits, so they're constantly going to be down. And then, there's a lot of people trying to log on their little server over there that they're barely paying for right now with, the people who are spending money on the game. They can't really afford a big server.
Right, and I think it's probably part of what you'd mentioned as well. I mean, I think with all the changes that they're making on the game, they're going to have those instances where they have to take the servers down to run through those patches and everything. And I think I experienced that a couple of times where I went to log in and the servers were down, but it usually wasn't for very long.
Yeah, most patches are pretty quick with them. I've never seen them down longer than a day. I don't think, except for like early beta.
When I was doing it, I mean, they'd be down for like an hour tops.
Yeah. All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to weapons. Seems like we both pretty much agreed on the accessibility is pretty good, straightforward.
Yeah.
All right, so weapons. There is a million weapons in that game. I kid you not. There's so many different types. I mean, you can have the same weapon. It'll have different types of stats on it. It could maybe have 2 more damage than the previous one, or it could have, I think, up to 6 different gem slots depending on how big the weapon is. And there's, 4 different colors? There's red, green, blue, and is there another color, or is it just regular and blue?
There's red, green, and blue, and then they have support versions of those, which
Okay.
are gems that enhance an already existing gem and give it an extra attribute.
Well, I mean for like slot type. I think, yeah. So there's only the 3 color slots.
There's 3 color slots, yeah.
Yeah, and then for gems, there's tons and tons of those. Those are what you actually use for spells. So say you get a fireball, and it requires a red gem slot. If you don't have any, you can actually get a ruin. Is that what they're called? I can't remember.
I'm not sure. There's so many different ones.
Yeah, it's an orb of some type. I'm not quite sure which one, and it'll change the color of that slot from a green or blue to any other random color. It could get blue again, or it could be a green, or it could be the red that you're looking for, and then you can stick that in there, and then that will appear on your hotbar with Q through T, and then right and mouse click. Yep.
Right. Well, it sounds like you're saying adding another slot to an item. Is that what you were saying?
Oh no, but there is actually, I think, yeah, orb that'll do that also.
What I've noticed about the orb is that it's not random. It has to do with whatever orb is currently, or whatever gem is currently in your inventory. So if you take a blue gem out and then you use it, it'll change the slot that you're modifying to the color of gem that you have in your inventory.
I did not even know that.
So yeah, you can specifically change it to the one that you need.
Yeah, actually, speaking of spells, that kind of brings me back to the key bindings. That's one thing I actually forgot to mention. Is I think they need more. I'm not content with that many, because usually you'll have one dedicated for spells, you'll have one in auto attack, and then you'll probably have a totem. So you're left with 5, maybe 6 keys if you're lucky for actual spells. I think they could use more, because there's a lot of spells in the game that you kind of want to use. Like, you can be a necromancer, you can be ranged archer, you can have traps, you can have ice spells, chaotic spells, or chaos, not chaotic, lightning.
Yeah, I mean, in this aspect of it, this is kind of where I wanted to just kind of touch on the system a bit. Definitely when it comes to weapons and armor, for that matter, there's definitely a large variety. Like you said, they have those slots in them so that you can put in your skills and customize, and then you have those support gems to enhance your already existing skills. But that's kind of where it puts the importance on gear, because then you have to have gear that has a lot of slots on it so that you can fully utilize all the different options that you have to you. And I think that that's kind of where it starts putting it into where you have to kind of pick what you're going to gear towards, because like you said, there are a limited amount of keys that you can use and a limited amount of slots on your armor. But I kind of like that aspect of it, because there's so many games out there now where I think they give you access to a little bit too much, so then you don't really focus and have a particular template. So I think this kind of forces you to use a particular template. You can't be too overly hybrid, because then you're gonna run out of slots and key bindings.
Yeah. Well, I think that's kind of where I disagree with you, because like back when I was playing Diablo 2, you had 3 different talent trees, and then each one of those had like 15, 20 different actual skills in there, and you could mix and match whatever you wanted. You had like unlimited key bindings. Actually, I think there was like F1 through F12, and that's where I think they failed with Diablo 3. I don't want to get too much into this, but Diablo 3, you had 4 buttons, and that was pretty much your spells. I think you could use left mouse, right mouse too, but that's 6 spells that you could use at any given point. And that's, I think, one of the biggest fails that they ever did, was limiting your creativity.
Yeah, and I think it still gives you a good amount of creativity. Like, I know that we haven't touched on it because none of the really categories fall into it, but I really did like the passive skill tree that they have for Path of Exile as well, because then it gives the option for the different characters to pretty much be whatever they like. I mean, in terms of where they start off in the skill tree, they can certainly be better to be a caster or to be melee or tank or whatever the case may be, but it still leaves that open to where you can, if you really want to, you can make a marauder, which is supposed to be a more heavier class, into a caster, or you can make a witch into, a tank. I mean, they might not be the best at it, but it gives you a lot of options for customization there.
Yeah, that is where most of the customization does come in. They included your actual stats into your skill tree instead of separate stat points. So you don't have stat points and then you have skills. They're one and the same.
Right.
All right, so there's a lot of stuff we could cover on weapons. I could probably talk about that for like another 20 minutes. There's so much customization you can do with what you have. That's why I'm so against limiting the amount of keys that you can use to bind to spells. But
Yeah.
Let's.
There's one thing. There's one thing I wanted to mention though, and we did touch on it a little bit. You were talking about like the different orbs and things that you can get,
Yeah.
and that's definitely a big part of the game as well. They put a lot of different orbs and things like that that you can get to upgrade either the quality of your items, to make them stronger, to change their attributes, to make them rare, to make them whatever they call the other one, unique. I mean, they have all kinds of different stuff in order to customize the already existing stuff. So not only is there a ton of varieties of loot and weapons, in general, but then you have ways of being able to enhance and change them as well.
Yeah. So if you get the piece of armor you've been really looking for, but it doesn't have the right stats or the right gem slots on it, you can use orbs to fix that. It might be more expensive than just going and buying one from somebody else, but if nobody else has it, you can make your own.
Right.
That's cool. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to characters, I guess. I honestly, the characters for everybody in the game it's pretty straightforward. It's already there. They all have dialogue of their own. What the characters that you're actually gonna play that are there from the shipwreck, they're prisoners, right? Yeah. And I don't remember if they were tossed overboard or if they're actually shipwrecked.
I think that they were exiles, so they were all different people that had been banished from different areas that they previously inhabited, and I think it was either a shipwreck or they just dropped them off there. But I was pretty sure it was a shipwreck because there's that one guy who's laying on the beach in the beginning, but I don't know.
And I think there's not really too much story behind your characters from what I could tell as far as I was playing. I listened to everything when I first started doing it. I don't know if they've updated it recently. I haven't listened to it in probably 2 months. I haven't actually listened and started a new character. I've just been playing the characters I already had. So I don't know if they actually added more storyline for those characters besides their little bios.
Not as far as I can tell. I mean, they don't make the world unique to what character that you're playing, and that's definitely a room to grow as well. I mean, if they changed some of the dialogue depending upon who you're playing as, that can put more depth into the background of the character.
Yeah, yeah. Is there anything else you want to say on character? You just want to move on to objectives?
No, I think we've pretty much covered it. I don't think it really took away from the game, but it's definitely has room to grow in terms of the storyline and the feel of the game.
Okay. As far as objective, I probably consider that more of the storyline slash questing. And as far as questing, it's pretty linear. You got basic quests, you go do this, you move on to the next one. There's no real change between quests, between the different difficulties or higher up. It's kind of mostly the same. Go kill this guy, go talk to this guy, go kill this, go grab this, go kill this, go talk to this guy.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, most games are kind of cookie cutter when it comes to that. Objectives are usually pretty straightforward. It's usually either killing someone or something or collecting item or a certain item or items. So it's pretty straightforward. I wouldn't really take away anything for it. I mean, they're kind of sticking on that already proven system. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward in terms of the objectives of the game.
Well, I mean, I would definitely like to see different types of quests because, like, I don't think there's any escort quest in there, right? I don't
No,
remember any
no,
escort quests.
I don't think so. No.
Yeah. Or like a defense type of quest, like, oh, you gotta help this guy get these items from here over here, and right while you're doing that, people are attacking. You gotta defend them. I don't remember any type like that either.
I don't think so.
Defensive.
No.
They are gonna add more acts, so they could eventually add different types of quests. But for the first, was it 3 acts? It's pretty much all the same. It's just cookie cuttered.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, and definitely that's room for growth in the genre. But I don't think they really were taking it that route. They stuck pretty close to the kind of loot-based RPG system
Yeah.
for the quests, anyways.
What I also liked is they're sticking to the more as you go through the world, things can change, and they will. Say in Act 2, I don't know if you got this far, but there's a giant jar or an urn, and you have to move it to get past and keep going in the act. And once you move it, it releases a darkness upon everywhere, even the town and all the zones, and they become really dark when you go into them, until you actually go and find that darkness and destroy it or whatever. And I like that they did that. It's not. It doesn't make everything seem bland and like you're not accomplishing anything. Nothing's changing really.
Yeah, and I also know from that one video I described where the developer was talking about the game, they also put all the maps into random instances. I mean, they'll usually still, of course, have their exits and their entrances, but a lot of stuff is randomized. So you don't, it's not really an aspect of memorizing the different maps and being able to kind of speed through it because it always makes the dungeons and everything a little bit different.
Yeah, but that's nothing new. That's been around. I think way back even in Diablo.
Right, but
Granted, there was only like 4 or 5 different types of that zone that you could have. So if you memorized all 5, you'd no problem. But nowadays they are going into the more infinite, always changing, always different. No two are similar.
right.
But yeah, it's nothing extremely new. So that's why it's like it's good that they have it, but it's nothing super awesome.
Yeah, it's still pretty straightforward sticking on the same kind of genre.
You know what I haven't really seen in this type of game is an actual a level difference. So like say you're on level 1 or you're going into like a marsh and then you go into a building and you can go up into it and then there's like 2 different levels that you can go into via stairs or a ladder, which doesn't actually zone you to a new zone. It's the same zone, it's just a different actual height level that you're looking at. That's something I haven't seen. That would be pretty cool.
It would be cool. I think it'd be difficult with the view to make
Yeah.
that work unless when you went up to a new floor, it would kind of, clear that ceiling or whatever and only give you that current floor that you're on. And I think really the only difference that it would make in that zone is it just would give you, more roaming mobs that could come up on you.
Yeah. But it's something new that we haven't really quite seen in this type of game.
Right.
It, Granted, it's probably difficult to do just because the way the loot drops and you'd have to shade out the other floors. Most of the time, if it does have something like that, you have to zone it, which, yeah. All right, is there anything else you actually forgot to mention or you want to go back and talk about a little bit more?
No, I pretty much. I mean, I tried to make sure that I touched on everything as I went along, and I definitely would say that overall, I like the customization of the game. I like the system that they used. I know one thing that you had mentioned, which I'll just touch on real quickly, is you weren't a big fan of the currency system in the game. You know how people trade items and things like that. It
Yeah.
is all based around those upgradable type items. The items that you use to upgrade your items are also the items that they use to buy games, not only from players but from vendors as well.
Yeah.
And they have different tiers in terms of that. That never really took away from the game for me myself, but I thought it was something that's worth mentioning is that they don't have any particular currency like gold or anything like that in the game. But definitely, I think that overall, it's a really fun game to play and has a good future. It looks like.
Yeah. That is another thing, though. Like, that kind of does help with how I was saying that it can get cluttered. Imagine how much more cluttered it would be if you see, like, a stack of gold there, another stack of gold there, 20 more over there. It would get even more cluttered. So it's kind of cool that they did go with an item, but then I don't like it because everything it doesn't have like an exact value. It's kind of like a shot in the dark value. Oh, that thing that's worth about 4 of these. It's not worth exactly 40 gold or 37 gold.
Yeah, I think as the game grows more popular, though, there's going to be pretty standard set values. It just depends upon what's considered to be the most valuable of those kind of upgradable type items, which the game already seems to kind of suggest with when you're selling to vendors and things like that. What's the lower end of those upgrade items versus the higher end?
Yeah, I don't know. There could be a couple exploits on this. I don't know if anybody's ever done this, but you can get some of those items really cheap, and then you could just go sit at a vendor and wait for a right type of item to come by, and it'll be really cheap. So you spend that cheap thing that you spent 2 seconds getting, or you could trade for like 20 of them. You spend one of those, you buy the item, then you resell it to the vendor, and he'll give you like 4 times what you just paid for it.
I've never encountered that, but leave it up to you to find something like that.
Yeah, I find stuff like that all the time, man.
Yeah, well, it's when people find it that they find that they remedy that, but that does happen with certain games. I'm surprised to hear that you found something like that.
Yeah, but I love looking at the economies in the games and finding ways to make your own money without actually having to play the game.
Yeah, I think it's probably still lacking in the economy aspect of it, but I think once it has a higher devoted following, that'll probably come along with it.
It's a really nice game. So I guess the only thing I have to do is actually give our scores. Did you want to go first this time? I think I went first last time.
Yeah, I mean, I like the game a lot. I ended up giving it an overall 88. I adjusted my scores. I kind of went back and forth on some of my scores, as we discussed things, just kind of remembering certain other things about the game. So, but I think ultimately it's a solid game and it has a pretty good future ahead.
I think I probably was a little more cruel than I should have been on some of the aspects because I was kind of looking for a little bit more of a fix from the Diablo 3 that we just got out of. And I didn't want another clone. I actually gave it a 78. Don't kill me. Don't kill me.
Oh, that's fine.
Two of the biggest reasons were I don't like having a limited amount of slots to use spells. That's the biggest thing I hate. If I want to have 20 spells, let me have 20 spells. If you gave me so much customization doing all this cool stuff in the skill tree, let me use all that different stuff I've been getting, not have to pick between which ones I like the most or which ones I think are the best. And that's like why I said I hated Diablo. That's another reason. And then the other big thing that kind of hurt for me was there's no cinematics or videos, so the storyline is still eh. And I mean, the game has been in beta for a month or a year and a half now, and yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely a few things that took away from it. I'd say there's room to grow in the communications. They definitely could stand to add cinematics and more character background bios. They still have room to grow in terms of, some of the lag issues and crash issues that I experienced. But, I think all that stuff kind of comes with time.
I think one of the biggest things I actually did like about the game, besides the voiceovers, was the actual the microtransactions. That's the word. They have so much in there. I haven't seen a game quite like that. Normally, when you have that much stuff, there's a couple items in there that are just the pay to win items, but everything in there is purely visual. I mean, pets, animations, different spell textures, weapon glowing, cool looking hats, wings, that stuff. Nothing in there makes you OP. There's a lot of different variety.
Yeah, it just puts that visual appeal to it, and I think it's cool because then that can be your way of supporting a game that you like to play.
Yeah, because like most of the games like this, like Diablo 2, Diablo 3, and some of the other top-down action games, loot fests, you can customize yourself as far as skins, or not skins, but gear. But anybody can do that. Anybody can get that same gear. Not everybody's gonna buy that same item over there that there's 20 of, and then that one over there that there's 21. They're gonna pick that same one, and then they're gonna get the same spells as you. There's no one that, yeah, you get what I'm saying.
I definitely do.
A lot more customization in this type of game. It makes you stand out. It's kind of cool. It brings the MMO factor into the game, I should say, even though it's still only 6 players.
Yeah, well, when you're in the towns, you get to see all those people that forked out the money on stuff. Because when you're on that shared server and you're in town, you can see the other characters, and that's when you get to see the cool hats and stuff that they've purchased.
Yep. Well, I guess that'll probably wrap up this episode. So go ahead and let us know what you think in the comments below. If you want to, go ahead and use my Google Docs and score it yourself, or just let us know what you really like about the game or what you really hate about it. It's all fine.
Yep, definitely. And thanks a lot for watching, and thanks a lot again for inviting me to review the game. I definitely think it's a great game, and definitely will make sure that you let us know what you think about the game, guys, because the more people's opinions, the better.
Yep, and don't forget to check out Honto's channel. I think he's got his first video up.
Yeah, I intend to do more. It's just, the time constraints.
Yep.
Having a real life. So some of us can't spend as much time on the computer.
What? No, everybody. Computers in the head, man. Computers in the head. No, but yeah, next week we're going to be reviewing PlanetSide 2. And then the week after that will be League of Legends, which I've been looking forward to.
Yeah, if you're gonna make me.
Yeah, I'll make you do that one. So I hope you get PlanetSide 2 installed. Everybody else, guess we'll talk to you guys later.
Bye.
My prayers are thus answered.